Welcome everybody. I'm REBL Risty with Revolutionize Your Marketing with AI, and we are here with Ryan Estes, who's going to talk to us about his very interesting career and what led him to marketing and starting two amazing companies and just all the things that you're doing in marketing and AI as well. So Ryan, I will let you introduce yourself to our audience. Tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Amazing. I'm so grateful to be here. Big fan of your podcast. Awesome show. And pleased to meet the audience. So, my career right now is heavily tied to podcasting. I was the founder of a company called Kitcaster, which was acquired in April, and co-founder of a company called Wildcast. Wildcast is a platform for podcast advertising. It's a software company. And then Kitcaster was a service agency that we bootstrapped that is a podcast talent agency. So essentially, if you wanted to go on people's podcasts, then we would facilitate that for you.
I love it.
Those are my two big projects. And then I also have two newsletters and two podcasts myself. I have one all about Denver, Colorado called Real Good Denver, and one called AI for Founders, where I speak to kind of preeminent people in AI of how they're building and what they're building. And aside from that, I'm an investor and creator and a family guy here in Denver.
Wow. We'll wear a lot of hats. I love it. I think that's so entrepreneurial, isn't it? Entrepreneurs tend to have a lot of things going and lots of energy, trying different things. Before as you know, we love AI here, but I'd love to talk to you about why is podcasting, do you think, important for business owners, entrepreneurs to be thinking about? Why? It's a lot, it's time and effort, right? Why should they be doing it?
100%. Now, I'll get a little corny with this answer.
Uh-oh.
On the large side, that I think podcasting is incredibly important. I think that there's certain challenges that face all of us as humans, whether that's climate change, or maybe that's nuclear war, or perhaps that's pandemics, things like this. There's very things that are very large issues that kind of affect all of us, and the fact of the matter is we really don't know what's going to solve that or how we're going to get through. The only way we do get through it, though, is to talk and communicate with each other. And podcasting is basically kind of the apotheosis of this idea. And what's so cool is that, you're in San Diego, I'm in Denver, which are kind of cousin cities after all. but we're able to talk and communicate and actually have, a pretty great connection because we can see each other, we can hear each other. So I think it's really important. I think we're also facing something maybe not as critical, but social media has shown to be very divisive for our culture, and you see kind of these weird culture wars or whatever's happened in politics. It all seems so dire and dramatic. But anytime I really talk to anybody, I never have any big problems with anybody. So social media seems to pull us apart, where I feel like podcasting brings us back together.
Yeah. No, I love that. I agree. Social media has just become kind of a dumping ground. You can still, see your friends and enjoy some of that more personal content, but don't get your news there. That's for sure.
And your entertainment. It was really fun when it was your friends feed, but now you have the For You page, where they can just feed you kind of the most guttural base thing that your brain, I would be embarrassed if anybody looked at my feed, because it's look, I can't look away from some of this content they're feeding me. I can't, so it knows that, and so it feeds it for me. But that's not good for my brain.
No, it's not. It's not. It's like having, a team. If everyone's always yesing you and telling you you're great, then you're going to believe And maybe, and you are great, Ryan, but it's just, yeah, I know. I love that. And also podcasts, you learn, like I have learned so much from listening to, leaders in industries. I've learned a lot about AI, just listening to AI podcasts and what other people are doing from other business owners. So yeah, there's definitely, I do feel like it's a much curated, cleaner opportunity for us to communicate. I love that. That's a great perspective.
And I think it brings out kind of our more noble qualities. My wife would look over my shoulder. She's like, "What's that?" I was like, "Well, it looks like there was some kind of escape tire on the freeway that hit that guy in the head. He's probably dead." And she's like, "Why are you watching that?" I was like, "I don't know. It just put it on my feed, and so, you know, but I don't want to put that into my head. Rather,
Yeah.
or a tire for that matter. But with podcasts, it's not passive. You have to open up Spotify or Apple or wherever you're going, YouTube, and you're choosing what you're going to watch. Now I'm not going to choose to watch Tire in the Head guy. I'm going to choose to do something better. Like to your point, like the education I've gotten from podcasting is unbelievably, deep and wide. So I think it's good for society and culture. Now, you were kind of asking specifically about like for entrepreneurs,
Yes.
and for kind of the way that they can use podcasting. And I think you're a great example. Like you really have an amazing show, and you've really harnessed kind of this as an opportunity for people to get to know you. And I'm sure in the beginning it was probably pretty challenging, and now you're in this place where like you're right in the pocket. Your audience and your prospective customers feel like they know you already, and this is huge. So I'm a proponent of what's called founder-led marketing. So the founder
Okay.
really has to. I mean, in my personal opinion, if you're the founder, you're the CEO of a company, a startup or wherever, and you're not willing to put that company on your back and stand up with your personal representation and say like, I am this brand, and
Hmm.
how if I go south, it goes south. If you're not willing to do that, then you really don't deserve to be a founder. You really don't deserve to be a CEO, because ultimately you're not going to be responsible for all these people that are counting on you to lead them into prosperity. Whether
Yeah.
that's your staff, or maybe that's your kids, or that's your partner, but all these people are counting on you. And if you're like, I just don't, I want to be behind the scene guy, you should give it to
Right.
somebody else who's willing to step up and lead. Because
Right.
in this day and age, this is the most important way to differentiate yourself is through founder-led marketing.
Okay. I like that. So often, I think you and I run into clients that they want to stay in the background. They're afraid of being on camera, or they're afraid of having an opinion. Is there a way, if you're a small business owner, you can't hand the reins to somebody else? Like, how do you get them warmed up to the idea of doing something like a podcast?
100%. Now, there's a lot of different ways you could do it. Founder led marketing, it's not one size fits all just with podcasting. I like it because it's the easiest, but that's because I never shut up, so it's easier for me, you know. But also, you own the audience. So, again, like if we're making an investment in founder led marketing, you could go to Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, Facebook. There's all these social media platforms that a lot of people work in, X, LinkedIn. But the fact of the matter is that you're just kind of borrowing their audience. So either
Hmm.
you're paying for advertising on that platform. So once you stop advertising, you lose the distribution, or you might inadvertently trip up on the terms of service and they just delete your platform. You lose your entire
Oh, yeah.
audience.
Oh, yeah. We've all gone through that.
Absolutely. Or, in the case of, or the technology just changes, So I know massive creators on YouTube that built, million followers on YouTube, but then YouTube really switches their algorithm to short video that no longer
Hmm.
prioritizes the people and channels that you follow. So they
Yeah.
lost massive amounts of distribution. They spent lots and lots of money, hundreds of thousands of
Oh,
dollars
yeah.
building an audience that ultimately gets taken from them. So
Right.
for those reasons why I like podcasting, because people select it. Every time you have somebody who subscribes to your podcast, you have them essentially for life, because that podcast feed will always be chronological until they figure out a for you for podcast. But it hasn't worked so far that
Yes,
people
please
really go
don't.
in and they decide to listen to it. So there's incredible value with that audience. Now, what we're talking about here is could be called owned audience. So with social media, you're borrowing audience. With podcasting, you're owning audience. And there's other channels too. So if you don't want to talk, you don't want to be on camera, maybe podcasting isn't for you. Maybe it's newsletters. Newsletters are fantastic because you have their email address and you have that audience for life, which is to say, if you trigger the terms of service with a newsletter platform, you just take your emails and you go to a new email platform and you still have the audience.
Yeah.
Another one could be just like writing a blog or having a website. A big proponent for founders to have their own website where they can express their thoughts and write it. So now, you don't have to talk, you don't have to be seen, you don't have to collect a newsletter, emails, just write, and you can do that. Now, and so if you're founder, you got a, small business, you got a solopreneur, you got to do one of those, I would be a proponent of building your own audience through owned audience because it pays dividends. It's something you can invest in that will compound as opposed to social media, which you kind of risk the rug being pulled out from you. But social media is a great place to practice before you're ready for owned media.
And I like that differentiation between your owned audience and then the rented land. And I think a lot of times non-marketers, business owners don't understand that difference.
Yeah.
If, let's say, you finally convince somebody to go in on trying podcasting, how do you prepare them? What do they need to be thinking about to really be effective and make it work for them?
You bet. If someone's thinking about starting a podcast, I would say don't do it unless you're willing to commit to 100 episodes. And then don't do it if you're going to judge those 100 episodes.
100%. 100%.
It's like, just go. And you have a new idea, you want to completely change everything? No problem. Just keep going. Get 100 under your belt and then pull back and be like, okay, what do I like? What do I not like? Do I want to do this? Do I want to change? What do I want to do? Let me be a little bit more critical for after 100 episodes. But, what happens is, and this happened in podcasting because, I was very insecure of the sound of my voice when it was audio. And by the time I was starting to kind of get over that and be comfortable with my voice, then it went to video and I'm like, oh my God, now I got to look at myself. This is even horrible,
No, I get, and I feel like video is way harder. Audio, and this is just probably me, my personal bias. Audio is easy. It's the video that seems to scare most people.
Yeah, man. I got a whole new respect for ladies. I'll tell you the honest truth because, I'm used to having a bar of soap that does the hair and the face and everything else. And, I started having to be on video all the time. I'm like, I need some moisturizer, maybe some concealer. I look terrible.
A little powder. I know. we used to do a lot of video, and the guys would always laugh, but I'd always bring powder, and because just a little bit goes a long way.
It's real.
I love this discussion. So how though, so I have had clients, us too, when you start out, it kind of feels like you're talking into the universe. Nobody's listening. How do you make a podcast effective for yourself to start that founder-led marketing process or strategy?
100%. I would approach it like a practice. So, maybe like a spiritual practice. I have a spiritual practice, which isn't necessarily anything I believe, rather it's something I do. I like to sit and do Zazen meditation. And a big part of a practice like that is you're not looking for any merits. You do it because that's something you do, Yeah. So there's something to that where then you're not kind of beholden to any kind of outcomes or results, and if you get results, great, but it's not why you do it. If you're thinking about founder-led marketing, particularly this, which is even maybe a step beyond marketing, it's actually media. You're creating a media company, and the fact of the matter is no one's going to see it. It might take 10 years, literally, before that channel does anything, or before that platform gives you a return. So Are you willing to do something for 10 years? Now, it could be at the end of that 10 years that there's a fortune waiting for you, you know? So
Please,
it's
please.
but you'll definitely get better. And the cool thing about practice is that like there's a virtuosity in all practice, and you if you like to strive towards virtuosity in a particular method, if you wrote for 10 years and no one's reading it, you're going to get better. And
Yeah.
a great way to think about this is, customers, while everyone would love to have 100,000 customers, you sign a customer one at a time. So
Yeah.
you can really create kind of bingeable content for that one person that comes into your kind of your world, and they have so much to learn from you, and they're like, "Wow, this was my person right here. Like I found it, and now I have this chance. I have all this information.
Yeah.
So do it for one person, and it's hard not to get caught in the numbers, and I know that because I've spoken to people that say like, "Oh, Ryan, I feel terrible. I only have 100,000 monthly downloads. What can I do with that?" And I'm like, you have an insanely large podcast.
Yeah, I was going to say, who's complaining about that?
It never ends, And then somebody else is like, I only have 1 million monthly downloads. I don't even have 10 million. And another person is like, another person's like, I have 10 listeners. That's great. So like, where are you going to fall in that? Like, if you're chasing numbers, then you're always going to be disappointed. It will never be enough. But
Yeah.
if you treat it as a practice, then every single time you have a new listener, a new follower, like you just made a friend, and you can build on that. And ultimately, like a lot of what, being a one-person media company or, you 10-person media company and being out there is you need encouragement, you need energy, you need enthusiasm, you need curiosity, and all these things get destroyed by comparison. So,
Yep.
you're like, oh, I'm not even Joe Rogan. It's like, well, nobody is. You know what I mean? Like, go do your thing and be excited about it. See what you can do.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. So maybe touch us a little bit on how do you help clients? So you recently sold Kitcaster, and now you have a Wildcast. Is that your new agency that is more focused on helping clients with podcasting?
Sold Kitcaster, but I'm still on board there as head of growth.
Okay.
And they're managing the company. I'm doing kind of the sales and operations, which I love, and it's a great position. Wildcast, we've been working on that for about 3 years, so we've had it kind of in tandem the whole time. And so, it's a different client, it's a different product altogether as opposed to a service agency. It's really a software,
Okay.
So we're doing kind of some different opportunities there. We've done everything from brand deals. We've done $1 million brand deals for people. The other great thing about becoming kind of building an audience in media is that you set yourself up for sponsorship opportunities. So as like an exercise, I started a podcast in January, my AI podcast, and I've grown that to about 27,000 subscribers between newsletter and podcast, and now I have 5 sponsors.
Oh,
You
that's
know,
awesome.
yeah,
That is great.
it's great, and it's like I'm super stoked about that. 27,000 is amazing. On a
Yeah.
weekly basis, are getting either the podcast or the newsletter, and it's great. Now, this is a little tangential. But I think central to this idea of starting a podcast, building founder-led marketing, is really this is the smart way to build and bring products to market, which is to build an audience, from that audience create a community, and then you pull the community and say, what do you want? And then
Yeah.
you build them products.
Okay.
I have always done that backwards. I built products and then I'm like, oh gosh, I got to go tell somebody, you know?
Right.
But
Right.
if I was, the way I do it now is I build the audience first and then ask them what they want.
Okay, that makes sense. And you said you just started this podcast in January. Can you give us a little insight on how you grew the audience to 27,000? I feel like that's a pretty good number for
Thanks. I think so
starting in
too.
January. Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of it is probably word of mouth, particularly around the newsletter. So
Okay.
I'm probably a foremost expert on newsletters for podcasts. I've helped dozens and dozens of podcasters grow their audience with newsletters. And what's interesting, you probably know this, but like podcasters get paid in sponsorships as a CPM, which basically means a dollar amount per thousand listeners. So anything from 20 to maybe $120 per thousand people that listen to the show.
Got it.
What I
Okay.
found in working with sponsorships and selling podcast advertising is advertisers are totally comfortable taking that same metric for newsletter subscribers. So if you have, and not necessarily subscribers, but let's say opens. So
Okay.
let's
Yep.
make the numbers a little more round. If I have 30,000 weekly subscribers to the podcast with a 50% open rate, then 15,000 people are looking at that image. So you could do a $20 CPM on 15,000 unique opens, which is basically the same as 15,000 people that listen to the podcast ad. And advertisers are totally comfortable with substituting those metrics. So,
Okay.
you can build aggressively a newsletter, whether it's advertising. If it's really good, you'll start to get massive word of mouth and people will share it. It's much easier and more natural for people to share a newsletter than it is a podcast.
Yeah.
A podcast tends to be a very personal experience because
Hmm.
if you're listening in headphones, then the voice is in the middle of your head, you know?
Yeah. That makes so much sense. Yeah.
So, like a newsletter, though, is in your inbox. So you can easily forward that to somebody. So it can grow really quickly there. So, I just have a ton of experience of like really growing audience with newsletters for podcasts, which not only grows the podcast listeners, but also opens you up to revenue opportunities for sponsorships. Because
Okay.
I think right now, me particularly, I'm very bullish on kind of business entertainment, where if you look at like the famous oligarchs on the mountain in DC, they're all entrepreneurs, Zuck, Bezos,
Yeah.
Elon, all these guys, for better or for worse. But like those are the kind of like iconic people in culture right now. People want
Right.
to know what's going on with the founders and CEOs of these companies, and I think the podcast newsletter is probably the best way to reach them.
Huh. That is interesting. I hadn't really thought about how much the newsletter could affect your podcast. Well, speaking of your new podcast on AI, tell us a little bit of like what you've been talking about. What are people interested in with AI?
Yeah, there's a couple. AI covers a lot of ground. What we used to call automation or machine learning, that's AI now. If it's
Yeah.
like true LLMs, that's called AI now. So everything's bundled with AI, and it's kind of become a catchword for everything. It
Yeah.
reminds me like when omega-3 fatty acids in fish oil were suddenly like the new savior of everything. So you had omega-3s were in everything. Your eggs got
Yep.
omega-3s. Your bread has fish oil. It's like, why would I want
Yeah, yeah. Or
why would I
gluten
want fish oil in
free.
my bread? You know?
Yeah.
So now it's AI. Now AI's in the eggs. Now AI's in the bread. It's in everything. So so kind
AI is making your eggs.
of peeling back, what are these different areas of AI? For me was really important. And then also kind of like what are the scary things about AI that keeps me up at night? What are the important ways that I can implement and deploy AI in my businesses that will make me money?
Yeah.
What are some ways I can create guardrails to protect myself from some of the insecurity around AI? And then what does the future look like? And usually what I really want to go into is what the future looks like. What
Okay.
does kind of human computer interface mean when the mechanics and the machines start going inside our bodies? What does it mean when we have 150 million robots swarming the country in all kinds of different capacities? How does that make my life better? How does it make it worse? How are we going to communicate, using more human and humane means? For me, I think it's kind of horrible that I got to sit in front of glowing rectangles all day. You know, I wouldn't make that argument in front of my grandfather, who had to dig ditches. He'd be like,
Yeah.
dude, you're good. You won, you know, you won. But I think that there's other ways that we can we can interface with computing systems, particularly with AI. So, when I get really excited about the podcast, I'll have like behavioral scientists on, or I'll have, people that are kind of on the tip of the spear of like what's possible.
Yeah.
And they're consultants for folks that are coming in, particularly around robotics and quantum computing and things like this.
Yeah, that's so interesting. I am very curious to see where robotics will go. And I've seen what have turned out to be fake, videos of robots actually being able to have conversations and, and do things which is all fake yet for right now, but I'm sure it's coming. Even the ability to do some of the manual labor that, like you said, maybe digging ditches or things like that, that are sure to come for sure.
Yeah. And I'm really excited, but I'm also like, I don't want human looking robots in my house.
Yeah.
It's like, it better look like R2D2. I don't want it looking like C3PO. You know what I mean? Now, there was
Yeah.
a launch from 1X, and I know those guys. They're great. And they just launched a $50,000 robot called Neo. And it's about
Okay.
5 feet tall, and it's kind of gray, and it has like kind of camera eyeballs. Super cool, very very dexterous, and it can fold your laundry. It can take out the trash.
No.
Oh yeah, yeah. You
Really?
you you can lease it. You can order one right now, $500 a month.
What
You
is
can
this
get
thing
it.
called?
It's called Neo. So look it up. It's I think 1x.tech might be the website. Let
Okay.
me let me look.
We'll have to.
Neo robot. Anyway, now it has all this capability. Okay. Now here's the catch that AI doesn't, it's not functioning autonomously through AI, at least not yet. The way it's
Right.
functioning is in some country, somebody has AR goggles on and they're piloting the robot in your house.
No.
Yes. Yes.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So you're like, all right, robot, go fold the laundry. It's some guy in Honduras that's like has AI goggles on and is like controlling the robot.
No way.
Yeah. And I'm not picking on somebody in Honduras. Who knows where they
Right.
are? But
Right.
how creepy would it be if you're sleeping and you see that robot in the corner of your room looking at you? You know,
Yeah. Okay. That's how it works right now?
that's how it works right now. Did you see the
Mm,
website? You see this thing?
yeah, I
See how it's like bringing
do.
in the groceries and it's parents. Would there be a robot parent?
I
And
don't
he's kind of got
know.
like a
We'll
little
have
belt
to.
on him, I don't know.
All
But
right. We'll have to weave in some video from that. Uh, that's so weird. What, besides robots that are watching you while you sleep, what are other concerns that you're hearing entrepreneurs, business owners are having with AI?
a lot of it is actually very soothing and nurturing, because, the idea that early on was like, oh, AI is going to take our jobs. AI is
Yeah.
going to destroy art. AI is going to do all these things. It doesn't look like that's going to happen. Honestly, the I might be really pushing it at this moment. Now,
Yeah.
AI is an amazing companion that can do a lot of different things. I think probably a lot of us have built a lot of agentic solutions and created automations that never thought possible, and then
Oh,
maybe
yeah.
half of them break, and then you're like, So it's got a long way to go. So as an entrepreneur and around creative people, it's like, okay, what can we do with this?
Yeah.
And the fact is we don't know exactly. Good
Yep.
point, or good kind of case in point. There's a company called Canary Speech, and it's using LLMs to analyze your voice, and
Okay.
it can detect Alzheimer's, it can detect MS, it can detect if you're having some kind of like anxiety, depression, these kind of things. So the initial, it's like it can detect like 2,500 different things from your voice. So essentially, if it was an app on your phone, it would be listening to you. Now,
Right.
you and me, no big deal. It'll be like, oh, Ryan's sleepy and he needs more caffeine. It'd be like, yeah, I didn't need a robot to tell me that. But for our nanas and papas, and maybe they have
Yeah.
sundowner syndrome, or you're worried about maybe their mental state, then it can just check and detect some vitals from their voice. So,
Wow.
and this is kind of new areas that AI is going to be able to do to prescribe and to kind of qualify different things aside from either our direct testimonial, hey, my back hurts, or through the kind of blood work and kind of the rudimentary stuff we have now. Because the fact of the matter is there's all these biomarkers that we don't have real, either we don't have tests for, or we don't have the kind of capacity to test a million different things at the same time to make a
Right.
diagnosis.
Yeah.
Whereas
Yeah.
now we really do. So there's startups that are doing, drive-through MRIs where you can drive, it'll just take an MRI, and, with LLMs over a week, it would have taken a million years. Now they can like look for everything,
God, that
so
it
preventative
really
care.
is amazing, but also about time. You know,
Yeah.
like it
Yeah.
feels like even you going to see the doctor, you still have to like answer the same questions over and over. And now they're finally starting to do the recording. Remember, you have to sit there and you watch them type in stuff and blah, blah, blah. And they have like some canned things that they throw in there. It just feels like the medical field, especially, is so slow. So I am
Oh, yeah.
happy to hear those things are happening.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if you're like me, but I would say probably 10 years ago, I just started lying on everything on the doctor. Because it's what you want me to write down my medical things on a clipboard? Where is this going? Like a shelf somewhere? No
Yeah.
way. And
Yeah.
to that point, I just got this class action thing that some doctor's appointment I went to a year ago, they're like, you could be awarded up to $1,000 in damages for some data breach with your information. I'm just like, my God. Not that I have anything to really disclose, but it's like,
Right.
okay,
You still don't want
they're
it out there.
like, if the doctor asks how many alcoholic drinks do you have a week, and you're like, well, is it 1 to 3 or is it 4 to 6?
Yeah. What's acceptable again?
It's like, no, I'm just scared to be, as honest as I can. Now, this is also a great point too, with the medical system in particular. There's another great product. What's it called? Baby scripts.
Baby scripts. Okay.
Baby scripts. So baby scripts, and shout out to Nish, great guy, buddy of mine. He has a product that essentially for maternal care, when mamas are pregnant and they want to have extra connections with their doctor, they can enter in all their things into their app. How do I feel today? I'm feeling a little bit nervous about the future, and it feels like my heart rate is up. I'm losing my breath. Blah 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 blah. They can enter all this stuff in, and then their doctor can see it on the backside, and the doctors can communicate with them. So it feels like
Oh.
extra touch points. You know
Yeah.
that you
Yeah.
get with your doctor, which would be reassuring and nice, especially if you're pregnant, and especially if it's your first
First
pregnancy.
time.
You
Yeah.
know,
Oh, I love that. I love that. Because I've had friends, the baby's running a fever. This is usually first time. She fell off the chair. They go straight to the emergency room because they don't know, right? And they're
exactly.
scared. And to be
Yeah,
able, yeah, to
and for good
communicate, oh,
reason.
she's running a high fever. Should I be worried? Blah, blah,
Yeah.
blah. Yeah. I love
So
that.
great product. I'm asking them about the future. And I want to say like when our watches can already take like your pulse. It can probably
Hmm.
sense your blood pressure. But like what if should it'll probably be able to know my serotonin levels. It'll be able to know my level of sweat, so like it's going to have all these additional markers for your hormones and different vitals that you might not even be aware of, you know.
Yeah.
And so through AI, you'll be able to provide real-time statistics of like all these different biomarkers. And I'm like, hey, wouldn't that be cool? And he's like, it would. But the problem is that doctors are not incentivized to have more information. In fact, they're de-incentivized, which means that if your AI, watch robot is giving all this information to the doctor. A doctor can't keep up with it because it's just so much, and he doesn't
Mm,
make the proper diagnosis. If something happens to that mom or the baby, then he could be held liable. So
right.
there is incentivization for
Hmm.
doctors to have more information, to have more agency. They would rather stay in the dark and not know if something was wrong, because if there is, they could be personally liable. So, you know, uh, going into like the AI in the future, particularly in the medical field, is full of this like frustration, and it might be just kind of emblematic of like how culture is going to clash with these capabilities, because
Yeah.
it's starting to run into all these different kind of like old situations that make it hard for
Yeah. Like,
everybody, you know?
yeah, sometimes things are a little ahead of their times. Well, hopefully that changes and they can find a way to work with it because I just think it's going to be such a benefit for for people, and it's going to change. I think what I'm hearing a lot, especially in the healthcare section, is maybe in our lifetime we'll actually see a cure for certain types of cancer. And that's, now a real possibility with AI and the ability to digest and review so much, data at one time. So I'm hopeful for what we
Oh,
can do with AI.
absolutely. I
Yeah.
mean, I think they definitely will cure cancers. And I've talked to multiple people that are actually looking for the cure for death. And that,
Oh,
like,
oh,
literally, yeah.
I don't know that one.
Yeah, hey, at some point, I'm jumping into a volcano. That's all I know. Maybe I'm 250, but we'll find out.
Well, who is it? Walt Disney, didn't he freeze his head in the
I've
hopes that
heard
they would
about
find a
that.
way? Yeah,
Yeah.
to bring him back. Yeah,
Cryogenically bring him back. I didn't like Mickey Mouse that much.
well, yeah, that
Let him
would
see.
certainly be strange. Well, Ryan, this has been so much fun. I'm sure we could go on and on, but I do know that you're busy and you've got things to do. I would love, though, if somebody's interested in learning more about learning about podcasting, how you could help them, what's the best way for them to get a hold of you?
You bet. I'm very active on LinkedIn. You can just look me up, Ryan Estes on LinkedIn. I got a gold background. You can't miss me. If somebody's interested in the AI stuff, my podcast is aiforfounders.co, and you can go check
Awesome.
that out.
I love it. I love it. Thank you so much for being on the podcast. This was really fun.
It's been awesome. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you. And to our audience out there, revolutionize your marketing with AI and Rebel Labs. We actually just launched some new AI teammates. I'm excited to say that help with sales as well as marketing, scheduling your appointments, lots of fun stuff. So I'm with Ryan. I think the future with AI is promising, and hey, we're all learning together. All right, thank you.